Hello, in this video I just want to talk about basic drawing skills and some techniques that I use to get started. This is an HB pencil. I do have a whole range of B type pencils because they are better for drawing, and I'm just going to show you some techniques now. I want you to hold the pencil kind of like it was a fork or something, maybe like you maybe hold a fork a certain way, but anyway, you want to hold it quite loose and kind of up here. And you're going to like just move your elbow around. You keep your hand static and move your elbow in a circle, and then just gradually bring the pencil down as if it's a plane coming into land, and then just draw a circle, right, and just keep drawing that circle. Keep the elbow going in a circle and keep an eye on what you're drawing, right? And then when you draw a line, you just want to do a kind of arc shape with the hand. Right, and then again with the elbow. And so on. Sometimes you can do elliptical shapes by moving more horizontally. Okay. If you draw very lightly, it's much easier to erase. Okay, think of all your light drawing as a guide. It's not the final thing. It's just something to get you started. I'm going to use this reference image on the right hand side here and kind of get to work on something. So I'm using my elbow to make a kind of elliptical shape, similar to his head. So you can see his head here, then the body. So I can kind of do elliptical shapes that kind of give me information like what way that particular part is pointing. Now I need room for the gun, which is the highest point, and the foot, the lowest point. So if I want, I can just put a little mark there, and up here maybe even the angle that the end of the gun is pointing, and those will just give me an idea of where I can fit everything in. Now I can look at the end of the gun and go to roughly where I think the head is, and it doesn't have to be the right size, just kind of a hint of the shape. Again, very very lightly, you can barely see this. This is so that if I make a mistake, I know how to rectify it quite easily. Now the torso, that big part of his body there, I'm going to treat that as one big elliptical shape that cuts through the head. I don't have to worry about going through because this is just guide circles, right? Then the shoulder here, there's a whole bit of shoulder that goes kind of round that way. So I'm just putting in little suggestions of where things are. Right, the arm goes there. I'm going to do a little circle for the elbow, and the hand is like way down at the bottom, just in front of the foot, so it's somewhere here, and it's splayed out. So the pinky and the finger is all I really need to show the expanse of the hand there. Again, this is just all note form. It's just kind of like taking notes if you were in some kind of lecture, and it's rough shapes. Again, bit of elbow, little bit of wrist flick. The knee is just above where the hand is in the picture, and then this kind of connects up to the foot. Then this side, so I've got the torso there, a little bit seen from the stomach area, the arm coming through, and the leg is behind that, and it goes round about just left of the hand here, so the knee is there. And none of this looks like the picture just yet, but it's at least a good bit of note taking. Okay, the hand you can see here, so to a little shape, you can see the thumb goes left and almost 90 degrees down. I don't have to lean heavy at all for any of this. Okay, and then the gun kind of just occludes the whole hand. It's in front of it, and there's some details there, and a bit of the stock before it gets to the end. Okay, the eyes have a slight angle. If you look at the left eye and trace across the way, it's lower than the right eye, so I know there's a slight upwards angle. So I can basically just put that in. Also, it's namely the middle of the head, somewhere about there. Okay, so every time I add a bit more information, it makes it easier for me to draw the whole thing. It's just a case of putting in all these little notes. So the head is kind of there, then there's a bit of the chest there, right? And I know now that this part that I drew in earlier, that little circular part, just doesn't matter anymore. Tucks in there, and then I'm just looking at the outer shape. Okay, so far that's starting to come together. I can see something happening that's making sense. Now the ear is somewhere there, and directly across is the other ear. Oh, we ran out of time with that one, but let's just jump back. I'll just pause it. It's actually a site called Line of Action, and I've chosen clothed adults, and there's a lot of good game type ones. So these are good for doing game characters if you want to study those. Again, I'm just being very light with the pencil because I'm not sure if any of these lines are right, and I'm making sure just to do 1 or 2 lines to get the shape right. I don't want to do too many because it will just get darker and darker, and I'm trying to keep all the lines balanced. So the first pass was really rough circles and some lines. Now the second pass is just trying to get some of the edge shape. And what I'm doing is I'm just drawing what I see. Eventually it will all come together, even though I've got assumptions about what I'm drawing, like this doesn't look right on paper, but it looks right to what I'm seeing, and eventually it will happen. It will just snap together when all the bits are done. So it's a good idea to be patient and just go through the process. Just trying to pick out some shapes. I'm not thinking of it as an arm, I'm thinking of it as a circular shape here, it's a shape here. I've already got my guide down to where the elbow is, roughly. And yeah, there's a bit of that, and then the elbow kind of pokes out. So I'm just looking at this shape here against this black curtain, and then it pokes out like a triangle. Okay, that does become the arm that way, and then the leg this way. And I'm being very careful not to draw unless I'm sure. I'm just kind of tickling the paper. Barely touching, barely any weight at all. Kind of like a feather. Right, and there's the note take of the hand there, and the pinky kind of going down to the right a bit. You can analyse the angles quite easily. I can start the knuckle and I move to the right and then down. That tells me the angle is this way, or you can just look at it and imagine what way the hand is pointing. If it was a clock, that's kind of like 5 o'clock. So then I just point towards 5 o'clock. Okay, and I've got the outer finger, so in between will be the other fingers. So I've left room for everything. I don't have to do them one by one. I just want to work on the most extreme positions first. and I just have to put in a line just to show where that is. Okay, now I can see a little bit of the leg there, little muscle part of the leg, and eventually this all joins up. And some of the foot here. Right, I'm just going to colour in the negative space, that is the space that is not him, just to help emphasise the shape. Right, same for the outside, and I don't have to fill in the whole page, I just want to go to a certain point, so around there a bit, and I'm trying to keep the same pressure with the pencil. And then I've gone just a little bit lighter now with the pressure. I'm going over that, but also going a little bit further out. And then I can go even lighter than that. Now there's less control here, but I don't have to worry because I can overlap some of that shaded area. And if you want, you can use your thumb to sort of pull some of that out a bit. Right. Okay, so that's done. There's a little bit of the shorts seen at the arm here. And then down to the knee, which is sitting just at the side like that. Now I can block in the fingers a bit more. You don't see the thumb is probably somewhere behind. You know, when you start drawing, you might feel that you're missing something, like, oh, I need to put the thumb in, otherwise it won't look like a hand, but that's not what you should be thinking. You should be thinking, I'm only going to draw what I see. What I see makes sense, therefore I'm going to draw what I see. You know, in reality, if you got him to rotate his hand, you would see he's got a thumb. Okay? It's just occluded, right? It's occluded by the rest of his hand. Okay, and if you make a little mistake, like me, I should maybe poke the elbow out a little bit more. There's no problem then, just to fix that. Okay, now I want to shade in some areas. I'm going to pick out the darkest tones. So this point in his arm, this is quite dark, and here. That'll help just finish that arm up a little bit. I just want to make that same kind of shape. Right, and then a bit of the chest, which is not far off this, it's somewhere here. Like that. And the face, okay, so there's a bit for the chin, and it kind of goes to the underside of the lip, round the lip. The top lip is completely dark, so it goes across more, and there's a little dimple at the side. Just above that, there's the sort of nose dip there at the side of the nose, and then the other side of the nose has got a kind of core shadow. That means the shadow's just in the middle left of the nose, and there's a little bit reflected in the other side. So then to show that, I'm just going to make this side darker up to a certain point. He's got a little bit of this side of the eye shown, and then like that. I'm only drawing what I see, not what I assume that I see. And then there's a core shadow kind of in the forehead there. Okay, so I'm not leaning heavy, I'm just giving everything the same kind of pressure as I block in this shadow area. And then if I want, now I can go just a little bit heavier if I'm sure. Okay, now I'm going to block in the gun because it's a very important bit to help sell the pose. I'm just going to block in the shape of the gun. The details aren't really important. Something like that. Okay, and now there'll just be some other details, like I want to finish the negative space shape here, so I'll just darken one side of them to a certain point and carry on shading. It's run about 15 minutes so far. Maybe just a little bit of detail for the eye there. And some shading for the shoulder. Somewhere under here. And the shorts. It's a good idea to get used to shading in the direction of the way things are moving, so you can do these little rotating type arcs and shapes. It might be a little strain on your arm and your neck at first, but the more you practice these things, it means they'll be second nature in about a month or two of drawing. I'm just looking for the darkest areas to draw, and I don't have to make them accurate. I just want to see some kind of suggestion of that area. Like I'm going to darken the background. If you do want to make it easier on yourself, it's a good idea to go for a 4B pencil for shading. You'll get a darker tone for less pressure. I'm just using this to help make his fingers stand out a bit more. Okay, there's a little bit of a dark area just behind the arm there. I'm going to do a bit more here. The darkest bit is there, and then it's kind of darker on that part. Let's do a bit more of that one, and a tiny bit here. I'm not going to worry about this tattoo or anything like that. I just want to capture details of his shape. Okay, we're in about 19 minutes now, so almost done. I'll just look in a little bit more shape for his leg. And that's that. Now I've got a smudging pencil. These are really good for smudging, and you can sort of put them on their side, and also known as like blenders, pencil blending tool, whatever you want to call it. If you feel you can't really do something in a set direction, there's no harm in just rotating the page. So this is going to focus. No harm in rotating the page to it's an easier, more comfortable position for you to work in, and it's a good thing to get used to that as well. You'll do that often. And the gun just needs kind of a solid form. But that's pretty much it. So I've copied this drawing as best as I could within about 20 minutes. Some bits do look a bit weird, like the shadow could be finished a little bit here. Maybe I could go over even more with the smudging tool to make this more balanced. And the same for the rest of the body, but I can almost just improvise with it now and just make it look good. But the reference is still there for any time I get stuck. So that's a good way to plan your drawing. Now, another approach you might want to use is some sort of grid system, especially for placement. Now, it means you would maybe have to put a bit of tracing paper over the screen for the reference you're looking at, and you can see what quadrant things lie in. But I've posted a video on this, and I'll give you a link in the description for a video on that as well. But a couple of things that you should do for exercise is get used to all the different pencils. So what your HB does when you draw very lightly, and get used to doing these little flick type shapes. You know, these flick motions, like down the way, up the way, across the way. And again, if you want, you can rotate. Try go left and right. Try diagonal, and make them really whippy type sounds. Try drawing in parallel, connect them up, but just one. That's the point, is just to do one. Some bad habit stuff that people do to do these lines, they maybe do it like this. Because it's so much easier just to do this with your hand, but it's a good idea to get used to the, you know, the bigger actions. Just one in a set direction. And try kind of changing, you know, rotating the page every time you do that. And getting used to different things. And make some interesting stuff, you know, practice shading in some stuff. Try some cross-hatching shading where you start, you know, with a lot of kind of dense type strokes, and then you can go wider. Okay, let's see if I can erase all this out. You'll see that a lot of the lines do stay there because the eraser is okay. It's not the eraser's fault, it's the fact that I've gone a little bit too heavy with the pressure, or the pencil's too dark. That's why using a HB pencil to start is a good idea. So a lot of this is still here, and it makes it hard to get rid of later. So that's why you should use a HB to get started, and just be drawing kind of like, you know, I'm just leaning my hand on the surface and just making a circle, and then bringing my pencil down. And you could get used to doing that on a full page, just connecting up all these little kind of balls, making big ones, small ones. Elliptical ones, horizontal elliptical ones, diagonal elliptical ones, long ones, tiny ones. And then what you could do is try to use a single line and don't go over it again, and just start making like the arc shape. If you want, rotate the page, but try to stick to as little strokes as you can and never go over the same stroke, and just try and get that curve. Don't worry if it's bad. This is just an exercise, kind of like a warm-up for your arm, your hand, and it looks better that you've just kind of done these nice little natural flicks that give it a bit of character, right? Something like that. And then maybe get a 4B pencil and shade in some of those like middle areas, the negative shapes. The bit where things aren't is the negative space, and it's just the background poking through it. And you can just kind of shade those in. Another thing you can get used to with a 4B or a 2B or a 3B pencil is the line weight. So where the two corners meet, you can go like a little bit harder and then sort of softer out the way. So a little bit softer, connecting that up. So really hard at the middle, and then soft, 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 soft. Right, and you get a nice line weight thing happening. Okay, now let's imagine that these are very shiny type, like this is all made of silver. What you can do is make a little circle here, right, and do a little horizon thing like that, and maybe the sun, right. This is going to be kind of like a reflection sample. Imagine this is a sphere, silver sphere just sitting in the room, and it's reflecting everything, right, and it looks like this, right. I'm just going to make the shading softer and softer as I get to the bottom and just leave the rest white. But mostly it's going to be kind of dark in the horizon, and I can do a little bit of shading kind of here like that, and maybe a little bit around this circle just to help emphasize it, right, something like that. Now I can use the smudging tool or the blender pencil to help that a bit, right, and then I'm just going to shade around the outside just like that, and then maybe take the putty rubber or eraser and just make that highlight a bit stronger and like that. So this is just going to be my little sample of what I need all these balls to look like. So I'll start kind of away from my hand. So this one's going to be like that, and I'll just start with the main darkest bit at first. So the darkest bit first when I'm shading in seems to be a common thing. This one is pretty much like that shape. So I'm just doing little ups and downs first, because that seems to be the easiest thing to do. I'll just do each ball until I've done them all. I don't have to change my mind about what I'm doing halfway. I want to keep on doing this process. Okay, and then back to the first one and go a tiny bit harder, but more control to get a straighter line just at the top half of that. So the top half of the last shaded bit, kind of cutting it in half and then making the top half darker, a little bit more leaning. If you don't have a blending tool, you can use a cotton bud, one of those like ones on the stick with the cotton at the end of it, or you can use like a little bit of tissue, or you can use your finger, but finger tends to be quite big and messy. Oh, I missed one here, so I'll do that. But what you can also do if you've been using a 4B is jump down to like a 2B pencil and then really lightly go over it, and that will help just make that lighter. Okay, I'll use the blending pencil now just to help make this a faster process. So I'm going to do a little bit of the side as I do this. So there's going to be a little bit of excess left on this. I can do a little bit of the side. So I'm going to do this for each one. I can also darken some of the negative space in between to help emphasize the shape of these spheres. I don't have to do the shadow up the side, I can do it kind of up this part here, and that helps this edge to look like it's also got a little bit of a reflective highlight. But I kind of want to keep it to the left hand side, just like this little sample sphere that I created. Okay, now I can go even darker pencil, go for a 6B pencil, and really kind of pull out some of the edges, maybe make a kind of shadow where all these balls kind of converge. Maybe there's a shadow overlapping another one. Maybe help define the shapes a bit more. I don't want to do an outline for everything because that will just make it look cartoony and a bit wrong. And I can even shade from the edge outwards. As long as I go quite soft with it, it's kind of like it's blending its way into an unknown background. And that just helps emphasize this bright edge. I think that just about does it. If I want, I can go in with the putty rubber and really make kind of the highlights a bit stronger, but I think I've done okay to keep the paper as white as possible in those places, and I can clean up the edges as well if I want. But it's just an exercise in making something look kind of reflective. You can spend even more time cleaning it up and making the reflections look better with maybe a 2B or a 4B pencil. And just like making that edge just a little bit more crisper. And there you go, there's a nice little exercise for doing reflective stuff. and also doing like a 20-minute study of a posed character. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry about the camera going blurry every now and again, it just doesn't know where to focus, and hopefully I'll do another one of these videos in the future. Feel free to request some examples or anything that you want me to try and demonstrate, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.